What's going on, everyone? So welcome to my latest video. This is my review for the horror thriller film that came out in 2000 called The Cell. So The Cell is one of those films that I've been putting off watching for years because even though I had heard that it's very underrated and it's one of those mind benders that's quite underrated to the point of it being a crime, I kept putting it off because what I have is in October of each year, I watch a bunch of horror films, and this was actually going to be the year that I was going to finally watch it. But what happened was earlier this year, the 4K release, which you see right here, came out, and I turned to one of my friends and said, hey, would I be able to borrow your copy of the 4K? Because I know that when it comes to Arrow, they have it where it's very limited in terms of the packaging. After I think 6 months or so, they remove this, and then they also remove like all the other stuff that's in it, such as the packaging, and then it's literally just this, so it's bare bones. So for myself, a physical media collector, I really much so prefer the slipcover, so I'm glad that I borrowed his copy of the 4K, because not only was I able to see the 4K presentation, and honestly watching it that time was amazing, like experiencing it for the first time in 4K was amazing, but I also got to see, hey, is this worth picking up in 4K? And all I'll say is, this is not my friend's copy. This is actually my copy. I bought it for, I think it was $31.75 on Amazon 2 days after I watched it because I liked it that much. Yes, this is a film that you can argue is derivative of Silence of the Lambs and Seven, to which I would say is honestly a compliment because those two films are why this film exists. The director is on the record as saying that because of the success of those two films, they knew that this would be a film that would be a success. And sure enough, it was. But it's a film that 25 years later, why doesn't it get discussed that much? And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But for those of you that need to know the premise, I'll give you guys the premise real quick. An FBI agent, played by Vince Vaughn, is trying to persuade a social worker, played by Jennifer Lopez, to go inside the mind of a comatose serial killer, played by Vincent D'Onofrio, with experimental new technology to try to find his latest victim that is somewhere in the world. So it would help greatly for them to track down this victim before she dies. So it's a race against time. It's a classic race against time, which again is very similar to Silence of the Lambs or Seven. But the question is, does this film stand out amongst those two? And I will say yes, but I will say this. This film, if you've seen those two films, you'll know the basic story beats and you'll probably be able to tell what's going to happen. But again, as I always say, it's not what a film's about, it's how it goes about it. And it all comes down to the filmmaking. If the filmmaking is great, it can make a story that seems like boilerplate seem really, really fascinating and engaging. And, you know, some people might make the argument of, oh, well, it's style over substance. And I don't like that argument because I don't think that it's a sound argument because film as an art form is visual based. So if a film is visually sumptuous, is that really something that you want to criticize when that's what makes things stand out? I don't know. It's one of those arguments that years ago I would say, yeah, style over substance. But now I don't use that argument because I don't think it's a based argument, as the kids would say these days. I think The Cell was a prime example of that. Again, you have a solid story. Like, the story isn't amazing, but the story is very solid because of the characters. The characters are really interesting. I would say in particular, the juxtaposition between Jennifer Lopez and Vincent D'Onofrio's character is quite fascinating. Jennifer Lopez did such a great job in this film, and it's one of the reasons why I still check out her work, because I think that although nowadays she's kind of checked out and is doing these big blockbuster films, I think the fact that this film, when it came out 25 years ago, was her still trying to find her voice in regards to the film world, and the fact that she decided to do like an art house type film that has a big budget is something that I think is very fascinating. But again, her character is also really interesting, and I think that it's really cool to see early on that her character, one of the touches of her character is that she watches Fantastic Planet, which is an animated film that I own, but if you've seen Fantastic Planet and you're going to this film, you'll know what to expect in regards to seeing a lot of messed up imagery, but you, at the same time, can't help but to not look away because of just how visually sumptuous it is. Vincent D'Onofrio is the villain, and I think that he does such a good job with his character. Like, he is so creepy. And honestly, if you're going to watch this film, there's two cuts: the theatrical cut, which I believe is 107 minutes long, and the director's cut, which is 109 minutes long. And the reason why there's that difference is because of a 2-minute scene involving Vincent D'Onofrio's character. And I think that it is very, very important because it sets the stone for what to expect. And again, with the race against time, you make it so that way you want to really, really see this, you know, this individual that he captured to be safe because you've seen what he's done to his other victims, and you get unfortunately first person point of view of that. So it's very graphic, but it's one of those scenes that I think is very important. But that's just it. This is a very graphic film. Like, even though the dream scenes are visually impressive, like, they are jaw-dropping with what they're able to capture through the cinematography, the costume design, the makeup, production design. All these aspects just are honestly incredible to experience in 4K. Like, they look amazing. But what really makes it all the more impressive is the sound mixing. Doesn't get discussed about that much, but the sound mixing in this film is honestly incredible. I love the fact that you have the real world scenes, it sounds very normal, but then when you get to the dream scenes, there's like an echo to what you hear. Like, when a character talks, you hear that echo. And I don't know about you, but for myself, I've had it where there are some times where I'm like half awake, and when people are talking, there's like an echo to it. And I never really thought about it too much, but when I watched this film, it brought that to my attention where I'm like, oh yeah, that is very, very accurate. Where, like, when you're half asleep, you can't help but hearing like an echo. Or maybe that's just me. Maybe I have a medical condition. But either way, I thought it was very impressive to hear that. And I thought that with what you hear, with what you see in the dream scenes, it's honestly a very visceral experience. It is one of those things with what you see on display. It's quite graphic, but you can't help but to not take your eyes off it because of how impressive it is. So again, the filmmaking is amazing. And I think that if you are one of those individuals that just is looking at a film as, oh, is the story one of those things where, I've seen it before and that's all I'm looking at, you're probably going to be kind of disappointed. But if you're someone that really likes filmmaking and how it's all about the execution, like myself, I think you'll really dig this film because it does a really good job of borrowing from the past with like David Lynch's films and TV shows such as Twin Peaks and Blue Velvet. But it also does a really good job of taking from like paintings in a way that would go on to inspire other work. Like the TV show Hannibal, there's a scene in the cell involving a horse that the TV show Hannibal was heavily inspired by in season 2, among other imagery that's on display. So if you like the TV show Hannibal, this is definitely a film that I would highly recommend because it's on that same wavelength where it's very, very graphic and messed up with what you're experiencing on display, but you just can't help but really be invigorated with what you're experiencing. And I really like the characters. I think that I will say this. There are some moments that, again, are kind of boilerplate, as I mentioned, that aren't fully great in terms of the potential that was on display but wasn't able to fully capture. But still, it's a film that I think is really, really well executed. I didn't even mention, but Howard Shore's score is really, really good. Doesn't get talked about that much, unfortunately, and it's kind of hard to find, which is a shame, but it does a really good job of tying into the sound mixing. And again, the juxtaposition between the real world and the dream world is just something that I found to be really fascinating. Again, I see why there is a cult following for this film because it is really, really fascinating to see the different worlds that we're seeing. But it's a film that at the same time, it's not for everyone. Like, I can definitely see why some people aren't really that into this film because, again, it is very hard to watch at times, and it does have a lot of messed up imagery. So, not for the faint of heart, but if you're someone that loves a good surreal, mind-bender type film, this is one of those films that I think that you should put on your radar, you should check out, because, again, it is very, very well executed, and I really like The Cell, and that's why, for me, I'll personally be giving it a... Hey guys, that is my quick review for The Cell 2000. If you guys have any quick questions about the specifics of this film, let me know in the comment section down below. But again, really want to hit home. Cinematography, directing, makeup, production design, all fascinating. Also, not that Jennifer Lopez will watch this film review, but please start making films again like this because this is very fascinating. Seeing you do these romantic comedies, not so much. This is what works quite a bit. Also, shout out to Tarasim Hassingani, who, from what I understand, this was his first film, which, what a debut film, man. What a debut. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on The Cell. Did you like it? Did you not? Do you own it on a 4K? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And as always, guys, I appreciate you guys for watching. And if you haven't done so already, follow me on Letterboxd, Patreon, subscription, notification bell, and I will catch you guys later.